Not metaphorically, literally. The engineers who plotted the exact curve of asphalt beneath your tires died 2,000 years ago, wearing togas, speaking Latin, and calling their achievement something you've never heard of. Yet here you are, following their blueprint at 70 miles per hour, thinking you're experiencing modern progress. Every single mile of American interstate highway, it traces back to 312 BC, not vaguely inspired by, not loosely based on, directly, mathematically engineered from the same surveyor's tools that carved through mountains when Jesus walked the earth. The Romans built 400,000 kilometers of roads, enough to wrap around our planet 10 times, and we're still using their exact system to move $18 trillion of global commerce every year. But here's where it gets interesting. The Romans weren't trying to connect places. They were trying to conquer time itself. Appius Claudius Caecus stood at the edge of the Sabine Hills in 312 BC, and he saw something nobody else could see. Not merely that Rome needed better roads, every civilization had roads. The Persians had the royal road. The Greeks had the sacred way. What Appius saw was more audacious, more impossible. He saw that if he could build a road that never curved more than 7.5 degrees per Roman mile, he could move legions faster than information could travel. He could outrun thought itself. The senators laughed. 7.5 degrees? Through those mountains? The mathematical precision required was absurd. You'd need to survey across valleys, through rock, over rivers, maintaining this impossibly gentle curve for 132 miles. But Appius wasn't asking permission. At 63 years old, the same man who just invented Latin literature was about to invent something far more permanent. The straight line that would rule the world forever. So he took 7,000 slaves and began carving, not following the landscape, bending the landscape to follow his line. Where mountains rose, they cut through them. Where valleys dipped, they built viaducts. Where swamps spread, they drained them. The Via Appia wasn't built on the earth, it was built through it, 132 miles of mathematical perfection that reduced the journey from Rome to Capua from 15 days to 5. 300% improvement. The ancient world had never seen anything like it. But Appius died before he could see what he'd really built. Not a road, a virus. Because roads, real roads, aren't made of stone. They're made of consensus. They're agreements between strangers who'll never meet that if you follow this path, you'll arrive where you intend. The Via Appia worked because everyone agreed it worked. And once that agreement existed, it spread faster than any army. Within 200 years, the Romans had built 53,000 miles of roads, all following Appius's original formula. Never more than 7.5 degrees of curvature per mile, never steeper than 8.5 grade, always precisely 4 feet deep with 5 distinct layers of construction that modern engineers still use today. The counterintuitive truth? They built 400,000 kilometers of roads, but only 20,000 kilometers mattered. Those were the Viae Militares, the military roads, built to specifications so precise that modern GPS analysis shows less than 0.2 deviation from perfect straight lines over hundreds of miles. The rest were just paths. But those 20,000 kilometers of perfection, they became the nervous system of Western civilization. Here's what nobody tells you about Roman roads. They invented the internet. Not metaphorically, literally. They created a network where information could travel at 100 miles per day, where standardized protocols allowed seamless transfer between regions, where every 12 to 18 miles you'd find mutationes, way stations with fresh horses, where cursus publicus riders could swap mounts and keep moving. The roads didn't just carry legions. They carried letters, laws, taxes, news, merchants, slaves, ideas, religions, technologies, languages, genes. They carried the entire contents of Roman civilization at 100 miles per day, every day, for 500 years. And they never stopped. The road I'm driving on right now, Interstate 95 through Virginia, follows the exact route of the Via Appia. Not roughly. Exactly. Surveyors in the 1950s didn't plot a new route. They simply paved over the Roman survey markers that had guided travelers for 2,100 years. The mile markers changed from Roman numerals to Arabic, but they measure the same miles. The rest stops replaced the mansions, but they're still 18 miles apart. The fast food restaurants replaced the tabernae, but travelers still eat the same foods: bread, cheese, wine, olives, just wrapped in plastic instead of clay. But this isn't about ancient history. This is about why you're late to meetings, why your groceries cost what they cost, why Amazon can deliver tomorrow, why you can drive from Boston to Miami without ever thinking about navigation. Every modern logistics system, from FedEx to Walmart to the US military, uses Roman mathematical principles that Appius Claudius discovered by accident when he refused to let geography dictate his path. Marcus Agrippa understood this better than anyone. At 25 years old, he became the second most powerful man in Rome by realizing that roads weren't infrastructure. They were software. In 37 BC, he took Appius's military road system and transformed it into the Cursus Publicus, the world's first postal service. But calling it a postal service is like calling the internet a fax machine. Agrippa created something unprecedented, an information network that could move faster than any human messenger. He built 10,000 way stations across 400,000 kilometers. He standardized wagon axles so wheels could be replaced anywhere. He created the first highway code, maximum speeds, right-of-way rules, weight limits for wagons. He even invented the first highway patrol, the viatores, who could arrest anyone violating road laws. Within his lifetime, you could send a letter from the Atlantic coast of Spain to the Euphrates River in Iraq and receive a reply in 6 weeks. Information had never moved that fast. It wouldn't move that fast again for 100 years. But Agrippa made one mistake. He built too well. Because when you build something that perfect, that permanent, it starts building you. The roads began determining where cities rose, where armies marched, where trade flowed, where ideas spread. They became the operating system for European civilization. When the empire fell, the roads didn't fall with it. They couldn't. They'd become the template for everything that followed. Charlemagne used them to unite Europe. The Crusaders used them to reach Jerusalem. Medieval merchants used them to create the Hanseatic League. The Pope used them to control Christendom. And when Europeans began building the modern world, they unconsciously replicated the Roman pattern everywhere they went. Which brings us to something even more important. You're probably sitting on a Roman road right now. Not metaphorically, literally. If you're in Europe, North America, South America, Australia, or North Africa, the street beneath your building follows Roman survey principles. The grid pattern of your city, Roman. The mile markers on your highways, Roman. The very concept of measuring distance in miles, Roman, millia passuum, 1,000 paces, 4,841 feet. The distance a legion could march while carrying 60 pounds of equipment at 3.75 miles per hour. The speed that Roman engineers calculated was the maximum sustainable pace for loaded soldiers over long distances. They discovered this in 280 BC. The US Army still uses it today. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Romans didn't just build roads. They built time machines. Every Roman road was designed with a specific gradient. 8-parve maximum incline, calculated to allow loaded wagons to be pulled by oxen without exceeding the animal's sustainable power output of 746 watts. They discovered that oxen could maintain 746 watts of pulling power for 8 hours without rest, and they engineered every mile of road to stay within those parameters. This meant that a merchant leaving Rome at dawn could calculate to the hour when he would reach his destination 500 miles away, regardless of terrain. For the first time in human history, travel time became predictable. This transformed commerce. For the first time, you could ensure shipments because arrival times were calculable. You could extend credit because repayment schedules were reliable. You could coordinate complex operations across vast distances because everyone moved at Roman speed. The roads didn't just carry goods, they carried certainty. And certainty, it turns out, is the most valuable commodity in any economy. The modern global economy still runs on Roman certainty. When FedEx promises overnight delivery, they're using Roman mathematical principles. When Amazon builds distribution centers, they place them 18 miles apart, the exact distance between Roman way stations. When Walmart calculates supply chain efficiency, they use Roman formulas for optimal routing. The entire logistics industry is just Romans with computers. But they weren't just engineers. They were psychologists. Roman road builders discovered something that modern urban planners are only now rediscovering. Humans navigate by story, not by direction. So they built stories into their roads. Every 12 to 18 miles, you'd find a mansio, a way station with an inn, a bathhouse, a temple, and a market. These weren't just rest stops. They were memory palaces. Each mansio had distinctive architecture, unique gods, local foods, regional specialties. Travelers didn't measure distance in miles, they measured it in stories. Remember the mansio with the red tiles where we bought those honey cakes? Became the way people navigated. This created what anthropologists call narrative cartography, mental maps built from experience rather than measurement. The Romans invented this 2,200 years ago. Google Maps is just a digital version of it. When you navigate by landmarks, turn right at the Starbucks, you're using Roman cognitive principles. When you remember locations by what happened there, that's where we had the flat tire. You're thinking like a Roman. The Via Aurelia still follows the Mediterranean coast, exactly as it did in 2041 BC. The Via Flaminia still cuts through the Apennines, using the same passes Roman legions used to conquer the Gauls. The Via Domitia still connects Italy to Spain across the same bridges Roman engineers built to specifications so precise that modern trucks weighing 40 tons can still cross them safely. These roads have carried 2,000 years of continuous traffic, legions, crusaders, merchants, pilgrims, tourists, and they're still exactly where the Romans put them because the Romans built them exactly where they needed to be. But they built something even more permanent than stone. They built habits. Every time you check Google Maps before leaving home, you're repeating a Roman ritual. Every time you calculate travel time, you're using Roman mathematics. Every time you expect roads to be maintained, you're assuming Roman standards. Every time you navigate by landmarks, you're thinking Roman thoughts. The roads didn't just change where we go, they changed how we think about going anywhere. And they never stopped evolving. The Romans built roads for legions, but they carried Christianity, which transformed Europe. They built roads for empire, but they carried the Renaissance, which transformed knowledge. They built roads for conquest, but they carried the Enlightenment, which transformed thought. Each generation found new uses for Roman infrastructure because the infrastructure was designed for infinite uses. This is why you can order coffee in Seattle that was grown in Ethiopia, roasted in Italy, flavored with vanilla from Madagascar, sweetened with sugar from Brazil, and served in a cup made in China, all arriving via supply chains that follow Roman routing principles. The beans travel Roman distances at Roman speeds through Roman waypoints. The only thing that's changed is the packaging. But here's what nobody realizes. The Romans are still building roads. They just call them different names. When Elon Musk talks about hyperloops connecting cities, he's describing Roman cursus publicus at 700 miles per hour. When Jeff Bezos builds Amazon's logistics network, he's building digital mutationes. When urban planners design smart cities, they're optimizing Roman mansiones. The vocabulary changed. The mathematics didn't. The Via Appia originally ended at Brindisi, where Roman ships departed for the east. Today, that same endpoint hosts the largest NATO naval base in the Mediterranean. The road that carried legions to conquer the ancient world now carries American sailors to secure the modern one. The destination is the same. The mission evolved, and it's still evolving. The Romans built 400,000 kilometers of roads using human labor, bronze tools, and mathematical principles. Today, we're building 400,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable using the same principles. Straight lines, gentle curves, way stations every 18 miles. The roads carried information at 100 miles per day. The cables carry information at 186,000 miles per second. The infrastructure changed. The architecture didn't. Which means something profound. If you understand Roman roads, you understand the future. Because the future is just Roman roads moving faster. The hyperloops, the drone delivery networks, the satellite internet constellations, they're all Roman roads with better engines. Same mathematics, same psychology, same human needs. The road that started with Appius Claudius in 312 BC didn't end with the Roman Empire. It became the template for every connection system that followed. The Romans didn't just build roads between places. They built roads between times. They connected their present to our future with lines so straight, so perfect, so inevitable that we're still following them, still improving them, still depending on them. And we always will. Because some inventions are so fundamental that they stop being inventions and start being reality itself. Roman roads aren't ancient history. They're tomorrow's infrastructure, yesterday's technology, and today's reality, all existing simultaneously in the same perfect lines that Appius carved through mountains when the world was young. The highway stretches ahead, exactly as straight as it was 2100 years ago, carrying you toward destinations the Romans couldn't imagine, using mathematics they perfected, following paths they carved, moving at speeds they couldn't comprehend, but always, always staying within 7.5 degrees of curvature per mile. Because some things are too perfect to improve. Some things are too important to change. Some things are built so well that they build us in return. The Romans called it the Via Appia. We call it Interstate 95. But the real name is older than both. It's the path that connects human ambition to human achievement. The straight line that turns possibility into reality. The road that never ends because it was never really about Rome or America or any destination at all. It was about the endless human need to move, to connect, to reach what lies beyond the horizon. And that road? That road never ends. It just keeps going, through time and space and human dreams, forever straight, forever forward, forever Roman. It just keeps going, through time and space and human dreams, forever straight, forever forward, forever Roman.